Somewhere in our life, we have been wronged by somebody. What do you choose to do after that's done? Do you hold on to that wrong, and do you own that wrong? Do you just let it set and fester in you? Or do you go ahead and forgive that person? Can you forgive somebody who's actually wronged you? We're going to talk about that in this episode of 153 of The Relaxed Male. This is The Relaxed Male, a show that comes to you each week helping men to remove the nice guy from their life so they can actually live their life on their terms. Join the host, certified coach Brian Goodwin, as he helps men step out of their heads and become free from the thoughts that bind them. Hey man, hello and welcome to Relaxed Male. I'm your host, Brian. I am a men's relationship coach, and I am here to help men get the nice guy out of their life, help them start living their life on their terms, because us men these days, we struggle so hard to try to make sure that we please everybody that we end up forgetting the most important person in our life, and that is us. We cannot control anybody else, but yet we suffer at the hands of ourselves. And I want to work at helping men to stop that, help get rid of that whole line of thinking, that line of being the nice guy, and to remove that from our line of thinking. And to do that, doing that ends up helping men to become better men, the men that our society needs, the men that our society is craving for. And till we can do that, we are going to have problems time and time again. And so one of the problems that we run into is that we have trouble forgiving people. And that's what we're going to be talking about this week. Now, before I actually jump into there, just a little bit of news, a little bit of an update. If you are aware of, I've been, for the past 152 episodes, I have been, as a profession, driving a truck. And I am now getting myself out of that. This is what happens when you take the time to pay attention to what your thoughts are. Make a goal, set that goal, focus in on it. And when you make that your sole focus, you do get the results that you want. You have to change and pay attention to what your thoughts are. Now, one of the big things that will hold us men back so much is when we are holding on to the animosity and a grudge against somebody. Doesn't matter who, it's anybody. And because of that, that's why I wanted to come up and talk to you today about forgiving and being able to forgive others, and ultimately be able to forgive yourself. And that right there is probably the toughest thing that you're going to do. Now, it doesn't matter how you look at it. You've been wronged by somebody. It may have just been some minor little, somebody cut you off in traffic, or it may be something that was very, very egregious, highly egregious, like some type of abuse or betrayal of some sort. And what a lot of folks do, men especially, we will let that problem, let that thought set and fester and grind on us for a long time, especially when it comes to a grudge. The most heaviest thing a man can carry is a grudge. And because a grudge is essentially you drinking poison and waiting for your enemy to die from it. And that fallacy right there is why letting a grudge get a hold of you is so wrong, and it holds you back. It keeps you playing small, keeps you from being able to reach the higher levels of success that you want, because the person who wronged you is living inside your head, rent free and controls your every idle thought you have. It'll roll back to thinking about what that person did wrong, how that person got away with it. Why does that person get to have success and I don't? And everything that happens to that person is all about the thoughts that you have about them. It has nothing to do because these people, the person who wronged you, sadly isn't thinking about you. They ain't wasting an ounce of energy thinking about how they screwed you over. All that they're doing is thinking about what they need to do. And you're sitting there just obsessed over what this guy or gal did to you. And because we obsess over it and because we keep thinking about it over and over and over, we start to identify as that person who we don't want to be. So if you hear a lot of times, people who are victims of abuse, they're almost can't have a conversation without actually saying, I survived abuse. Now, is it something you need to talk about? Yeah, that's something it doesn't hurt to talk about. Do you need to talk about it incessantly? Honestly, no, because you're still identifying as that abused person. Can you get past the fact that you were abused? Can you get further down the road and not even have to worry about the fact that you were abused? That's the question. Were you betrayed by a woman and now you hold that grudge that you think all women are going to be like that? Well, then you're going to start seeing every woman being a betrayer like the jilted man you were. Are you going to come across bad people in your life? Yeah, you are. Are you going to let that person who wronged you possess your every waking second and even your unconscious seconds? That's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to dive in and address, because so many of us guys, we get a grudge. We feel like we've been wronged somewhere along the way. And that is where a lot of our problems come in. That's where we start to dip into alcohol, drugs, porn, other things like that. We start using these wrong solutions to a problem. And that's what these different addictions actually are. They're just the wrong solution to a problem. We want to find a means to escape the pain that we feel because we were wronged. And when you're wronged, yeah, it doesn't feel good, especially if you're letting it set on you and you're thinking about it and reminiscing about it and ruminating over it over and over and over again. You're going to come back to the whole issue and you're going to have relive that post-traumatic stress. If you are, and I use the post-traumatic stress very, very intentionally, because a lot of times I don't believe a lot of the people today really have what post-traumatic stress disorder actually is. Soldiers who've been through war, yeah, they've kind of been through post-traumatic stress. People who've been in horrendous car crashes, yeah, okay, they probably have got some type of post-traumatic stress. You know, a guy who got turned down by a girl who was out of his league, no, I don't see that as being post-traumatic stress. People are always talking about all the trauma that they've experienced. Oh, okay, something might be traumatic at that moment, but that fact that you're looking at it as trauma means that it's just a thought. You went and you asked the homecoming queen to go out on a date with you, and she just looked at you and was like, "No, you're a freshman. Get lost." That humiliation that you faced in that isn't traumatic. It's the thought that you think it's traumatic, but in all reality, it is not actually all that traumatic. It was just you being rejected by a girl. That's all it was. Doesn't mean anything about her. Doesn't mean anything about you. Just means that she is not the type of guy she wants to date. And in all reality, if she's not the type of gal that wants to date you, then you really don't want to be dating her either. And when you start facing all this trauma and you start looking at trauma as, hey, it's just a thought, you can actually start changing how you look at stuff. And you can actually and I'm saying actually a lot, I'm just catching that. Sorry. You're able to change how you view the person who actually wronged you. Now, one of the things that I want to always express about what forgiveness is and how to actually forgive a person. And it's really easy to forgive a person, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Forgiving, a lot of people say you want to forgive and forget. And to a point, I'm going to agree with that, but it's what you want to forget. Okay. Do you want to forget that the person wronged you? No, honestly, keep a hold of the fact that what that person did to wrong you. And you can stay leery of that person. If they come back in, especially if it's like a relative, say you had an uncle who would whack you upside the head every time he saw you. You say something and he'd just, for whatever reason, he'd hit you. All right. And so you now know anytime, Uncle Henry shows up, to step away. No, don't let him be behind you. You go stand by other people so he doesn't have the opportunity. You deny him that opportunity to be able to inflict the pain on you. Those types of things are very doable for you. You don't have to forget what the person did. But when I say forgive and forget, I mean forgive and forget even thinking about the person. Don't let that person entertain another second in your life. You can evict him out of your head. And these are things that you can actually do. So what is forgiving? And what exactly does it mean? Well, it means that you're not going to allow yourself to think about that person anymore. You're not going to let that person have access to the events in the past. You're not going to take the time to even worry about what they are doing right now. Where are they at? Are they experiencing success and you're not? Who cares? But forgiveness is actually a means of closing a chapter. Because a lot of times we will stay in a chapter of our life and we will be stuck in that chapter of our life for a very long time because we have this grudge. We have this obstacle of Uncle Henry. We have this, the stepmother, the stepfather, whoever it is who has wronged you, who has taken your quote unquote power and has ran off with it. This is you being able to shut the door on that thought. Forget about what they did. Don't, forget about who they are, not what they did. Forget about who they are and you claiming your power back. Because I'll let you in a little secret. You never lost that power. You voluntarily gave your power to that person that you don't even like. How about that? That is something that men struggle with all the time. They're, so-and-so, that bully of whatever, we always had the high school bully or even a grade school bully or even a workplace bully. We can either live our life in the fact that, yeah, we had a bully. Guess what? Everybody has a bully sometime in their life.
That what the bully lives off of is the fact that you voluntarily give your power up and you hand it to them. And how do you volunteer it? Well, sometimes it's through coercion. Sometimes it's through violent actions. Sometimes it's by a wedgie. It's something that they do where they coerce you into handing over your power over to them. Do you want to give up your lunch money? You don't have to, but it will take you probably having to bloody a bully's nose or find some other way of alleviating the problem. But when you alleviate that problem, you do free yourself up from all those obligations. You do allow yourself to reclaim your own personal power. Because in all reality, you never actually lost that power. It was there. You just chose not to use it, and you chose to let Mr. Bully have access to your emotional controls. He called you fat and stupid, and you just agreed with him. So how do you forgive when you've had somebody in the past wrong you? Well, there's two different ways. The first one is the absolute simplest. And that is, all you have to do is just say, Uncle Henry, I forgive you for all the whatever problem, for all the blows to the head you gave me. And that's it. You can just simply say, I forgive you. And that's the easiest way. Now, sadly, a lot of us people don't want to do it the easy way. We don't want to do it. That's way too simple. That's simple, easier said than done. Well, I didn't say that was all there was. That's the key to forgiving. There's other people who think it needs to have more of a ritual, something, and rituals work. Rituals are very good for us to set our minds into a particular track. And so I also recommend, if you ever have a grudge or something that you're wanting to get rid of and you're wanting to dump it, you're tired of walking around with this load of crap on your shoulders all the time. How do you get rid of it? Well, another way is you can do the letter technique. What is the letter technique? You start out with, grab a piece of paper, and at the top you write, Dear whoever your offender is. And then underneath there, you write, I forgive you for, and then list out all of the infractions that they performed upon you, everything that they did, and why those infractions were so egregious to you. Write it all out. Get as detailed as you want to get. And down at the bottom, you write again. But even though you did all that, I choose to forgive you. Sign your name, fold it up, put it in an envelope, address it to the person. Then here's the trick. You light it on fire, and you see as that fire is consuming that letter that you are letting that pain go. You're letting that grudge go. It is evaporating in the flames that you're giving. Now, that's two different ways you can do it. Now, is that all you have to do to forgive somebody? No, because you have spent so many years letting that person live in your head. You got to remember, your mind has the motivational triad, right? It wants to seek pleasure, which is why we turn to drugs and things like that when we're faced with something that is with a grudge. We want to be as efficient as possible. And we also want to avoid pain. So to be as efficient as possible, our brain kicks into the habit. So you're going to, you may even light that envelope up, burn it away. And once it's done, you feel really good. And about 30 minutes later, all of a sudden you're thinking of Uncle Henry again. You're like, God, I can't believe it. And you're going to want to sink back into that. When you catch yourself thinking about Uncle Henry or, or whoever it was that offended you, did you wrong, then what you do is you go, I'm not thinking about him ever again. And that's it. You just repeat that. Every time you catch yourself thinking about the person who wronged you, I'm not going to think about that ever again. And you stop the thought there. If you start feeling guilty about thinking or start getting angry because you think that they're getting away with whatever it is, no, they're going to get theirs in the end. All right. Who cares what they are doing right now? You have no power over the person who offended you. Even if they did something that was incredibly illegal, guess what? Even if you do get them punished and you get them thrown in jail, you're still going to be racked by the same thoughts you had before. You're still going to want to blame them for your shortcomings. You're going to want to blame them for all the trouble in your life. You're going to want to blame somebody else. You're going to want to take your power and pass it over to them again. And that doesn't work. You have to own your dirt. And that is never thinking about that person again. Forgive them. Let it go. It doesn't freaking matter, man. Did they wrong you? Yeah, it's horrible. But you now are smarter because you went through that experience. There's that old saying. First time they fooled you, shame on them. Second time they fooled you, shame on you. So if you let them pull the same trick, say you had somebody who told you they needed, maybe $10,000, a good chunk of change. And you were like, all right, well, fine, here, and wrote out a check or drew out the money and gave it to them. And next thing you know, you see pictures of them over in Jamaica and having a grand old time on Facebook. Well, the next time they come to you and go, hey man, I'm really hurting for some money. I've got bills I've got to get taken care of. Would you mind loaning me, $5,000? No. If you say, yeah, you're the fool. All right. If you say, no, I'm not doing that no more. You're laying out the boundary. You're laying out the line, and they can get mad if they want. They were caught. And so it doesn't matter if they get angry about it. All right, fine. Let them be angry. Let them throw a wall-eyed hissy fit about it. It doesn't matter. That's on them. That's their reaction. That's not yours. Let them get mad. Let them stomp around. Let them pout. That's their emotions. They're not your emotions. You are able to say, no, I'm not going to let you take advantage of me anymore. And when you forgive them and you forget about them, you are taking that power back. You're holding on to that boundary. You're not letting the fact that they took advantage of you and you were a victim before. You're dropping that whole victim mindset. You're no longer going to be the poor boo-hoo. Oh, poor me. I was abused and traumatized little kid. No, you're not that anymore. You're a full-grown man who is tired of letting other people run over him. And so you are going to stop being the victim. You're going to stop being victimized by somebody who doesn't even think of you. Now, another thing about forgiving is actually the harder person to actually forgive is yourself. You can quite easily go off and forgive somebody of their wrongs. But when you know you've done something wrong, can you forgive yourself? This kind of starts to fall into the whole
Brene Brown, the whole shame cycle that she talks about. We may have done something that was egregious. We may have done something that was low down, mean, underhanded. You may have taken money from a blind man, or you may have cheated at cards. You may have even cheated on your wife and got away with it once or twice. But now you're racked with the guilt and you feel shame that you've done that. Now, one of the places where I really disagree with Brene Brown is that she says shame is something you need to stay away from. You should not feel shame. Shame is something that holds you back. And I can see that. But I also think shame is an indicator of you knowing you did wrong. And when you feel shame, yeah, it's good if you can ask that other person to forgive you of your shortcoming. But a lot of times that still doesn't completely fix the issue, because you also have to ask yourself, because you've been out of integrity with yourself. Can you forgive yourself of the wrongdoings you've done? That's where the difficulty comes into play. Because so many times we hold ourselves to a standard that is unrealistic to other people. Yet you have no problem when you're trying to forgive somebody else. But yet to forgive yourself, that's where you start to really gain your power. And you can actually start to walk more upright. Be able to start walking with more confidence. Did you screw up 20, 30 years ago when you were a young man? Yeah, we all did. Maybe you got caught once, joyriding in a car. Yeah, that's something pretty bad, Maybe you even were hooked on drugs and you went off and did something really stupid. And you wound up in jail, even in prison. Can you forgive yourself enough to know that you are not that person anymore? You're not the same person that you were 5 minutes ago. There's a saying, you cannot walk into the same river twice, because you're not the same man and it's not the same river. Because the very particles of water that you stepped in is already gone down the river. By the time you try to cross the river again, it's a completely different river. There are the bits of sand that when you step in there, you kick the sand up, and so those sand particles move. Always is changing. You are always changing. You're always growing. You're always evolving. You're always becoming somebody better, hopefully. If you aren't, if you're not learning, you're not developing, you're not growing, then you're dying. Are you willing to forgive yourself of the crimes that you committed? Because you're the one who actually it's going to matter the most too. If you can forgive yourself, that's great. That's even better, because you are showing yourself that you care for yourself enough that you're willing to ask yourself to forgive. Can I forgive myself for being a dad that was in a truck for 13 years? Yeah, I can. Was I there for my children all the time? No, I was basically raised my kids from the cab of a truck. There was times I think my son and my daughter desperately needed their dad. But I had a responsibility I had to complete. I had a responsibility to them. I had a responsibility to my employer. It happens.
But can you be okay with that arrangement? If you struggled with it and you have agonized over it and you beat yourself up over it, then it's probably time that you forgive yourself for that. Make changes that need to be made and then forgive yourself for failing. Forgive yourself for the times that you didn't make it to that goal that you wanted to make. You can forgive yourself. You can forgive yourself on all sorts of levels, and you can use the very same tactics that you use on forgiving others. You can actually just say, I forgive myself for blank. Or you can write a letter. I forgive myself for doing this because this I now realize is where I failed, and fill it out. Get as rich in details as you want, then fold it up, put it in an envelope, address it to yourself, and then again, light it on fire. And when you start trying to feel sorry for yourself because of something that you did, that's where the work comes into play. Start changing your thoughts. No, that's not right. Start telling yourself, no, that's not a good thought. That's not the right thought. And start using the right thought. I did what I had to do. I raised my kids to the best of my ability, and they turned out pretty damn good, actually. You're allowed to come up with new thoughts. You're allowed to forgive yourself. You're allowed to forgive others. And I encourage you to. If you want help being able to encourage, or want help and encouragement on how to forgive yourself of the problem of the past shortcomings you've done, go to relaxmail.com/coaching and fill out the form. We'll set up a consult call. We'll talk it out. We'll find out what you're wanting to accomplish. And we'll go through the consult call, and we'll find out, is this something you could really do? Something that you're absolutely wanting to do? Because some of us go, yeah, I want to forgive myself. And then when it gets to the rubber meets the road, they're like, whoa. There's a lot of other thoughts that I'm having here. And that's where coaching really becomes powerful. But if you can forgive yourself, and you can forgive yourself completely, that's where you start to shine. That's when you all of a sudden open doors up and start giving yourself access to better and better parts of your life. So if you want help with that, get a hold of me, relaxmail.com/coaching. You can also shoot me an email, brian@relaxmail.com/contact, and we can talk through email. So guys, with that, I want to thank you very much for listening. If there's anything I said here that resonated with you, that just answered some deep questions and concerns that you had, then I ask that you share this out with your friends, your family, their followers on social media. If you want more of these shows on delivered to your podcast player of choice, then just ask that you hit the subscribe, follow button. And every Thursday, this will be plopped right down. It'll be downloaded. I usually set it up to where it releases about 3:00 in the morning. So it'll download and be ready for you when you go to work the following day. So guys, I want to thank you very much for listening. Share this out, share it on Facebook and Twitter, screenshot it, share it on Instagram, share it where you got guys who are really struggling. If you've got Facebook groups that you think would benefit from hearing this, share it there. As long as it doesn't break the rules. And guys, start working on forgiving yourself. Start working on forgiving others for their problems. Because the more you sit in your own filth and your own pity, the more you're going to wonder why you can't get up. That's because you've weighted yourself down with all this guilt, all this grudgery, and it's not going to help you. So guys, with that, I want to thank you very much for listening. You take care. Love you lots. See you next week. Till then, bye.